So Gary Lockett, thanks a lot for your time today. Tell me about your own background in boxing, about what you've achieved and how you got started.
My background in boxing. Will people really want to be interested in my background in boxing? It's so long ago. Multi-title amateur, many national titles, European Junior Gold, turned pro, won the WBO Intercontinental title, which should have been the Commonwealth title because I fought a guy called Kevin Keddy who was a very good fighter, but the Border Control deemed me too inexperienced to actually qualify for boxing for the Commonwealth title.
Okay.
So I ended up boxing for the WBO Intercontinental, stopped him in 4 rounds, probably one of the best victories of my career. Also won the WBU title, which was sort of like the IBO these days, I suppose, but beat some good names, beat like Ryan Rhodes in a good fight, and my career culminated in fighting Kelly Pavlik for the WBC, WBO titles, but stepped too far. Kelly Pavlik, good fighter, very good fighter. Just so happens that when I got my shots, it was like the pound for pound. I think he was pound for pound number 2 at the time, so a little bit too good for me, stepped too far. But I called it a day then at the ripe old age of 30, and I was going to leave boxing because I've got a property portfolio. I was just going to concentrate on that.
Yeah.
A young lad from Swansea asked me to start working with him probably about 8 months after I retired. I started working with him, coaching him, and I found that I really enjoyed it, and I've been doing it ever since. So what was that, 2009, so where are we now? So 14 years later, still ticking along quietly, minding my business, not calling people out, and none of my boxers kind of shout their mouths off and call people out. I try to coach my boxers and teach them in their lives just to be respectful, really, and the way I was brought up, and respect the opponent. Obviously, every now and again it'll get heated, and that's when you can't back down, but up until then you have to be a little bit more respectful. I don't like all this pushing and shoving and shouting and shouting in each other's faces, but then again, listen, I think that perhaps I'm a fossil, perhaps I'm old-fashioned. I think that's maybe what sells fights these days, isn't it? So but it doesn't really fill me with joy when my fighters do it.
No, I actually agree with you. I don't like that kind of stuff because, I mean, you look at a lot of the great fighters, the Sugar Ray Robinson, people like, they never used to do that. And I mean, look at other sports. Look at when Cristiano Ronaldo, the Pelés, Maradonas. So long as you can perform at your sport, then what do you need to do all that kind of stuff for?
Yeah, that's what I think. But I think it's come to the world's a different place now. Even from 5 years ago. I think it's just changing so rapidly, and I mean, if you look at the YouTubers and the Misfits boxing, it seems to be more popular now than actual boxing, doesn't it?
It is, yeah.
In certain for certain audiences, so far different world we live in nowadays. And as I say, I think I used to hear my dad say, maybe I'm a fossil. I never thought I'd find myself saying it, but at the age of 46 now, I'm saying the same things as my dad was saying 20 years ago.
Wow. I mean, look, since you bring up Misfits, I am actually trying to get into it myself, but I'll give you an objective point of view. The problem with boxing is that they allow these sort of things to go on. So where these guys are coming into boxing, where they've got a big following, you wouldn't be able to do that in any other sport. I wouldn't be able to walk up into the Premiership and say, I've got 100,000 Twitter followers, let me play with Messi. So the question I'm trying to ask, is it boxing's fault that these guys are getting into it? Because they're just taking advantage, they're exploiting the situation.
It's a good question, actually, and it's probably a very tough one to answer. You've stumped me, really. I mean, listen, another thing, and I'm not disrespecting Misfits or YouTubers. At the end of the day, I respect anybody that gets involved or gets through the ropes, whether they be 10 years of age or whether they be novices or white collar or what have you. And if they earn money like the YouTubers we're talking like Jake Paul, if they earn massive money doing that, then good on them. You know, I got nothing against them. The reason I mention it is just because it just seems to be such a changing world. Where you have like some of these fighters who are on small hall bills, perhaps for instance selling sort of having to sell 100 tickets or whatever, and they come out there with like £1,000. They might have been barnstormers, they have to sell all these tickets whilst holding down a full-time job, training twice a day. They're coming out with £1,000, whereas some of these YouTubers are earning massive amounts of money. It doesn't really seem fair, does it? But it's just the way it is. And like I just said, you know, I've got nothing against these YouTubers. If they can command that amount of money, they're doing something right, aren't they? So good on them.
I mean, I don't want to bore you on this subject, but when you say it's not fair, I'm not agreeing with it. I am against it. But what is with these guys? The reality is they sell a lot of tickets. It's like, if you say you met us, if you met Arnold Schwarzenegger or Stallone or someone like this, you'd probably ask them for a picture. So I'll give you an example. If you met Arnold Schwarzenegger, you'd probably ask him for a picture.
No.
I'm assuming too much.
Don't think I've ever asked for an autograph in my life.
My apologies, but a lot of people would.
It's just the way I am.
Yeah, I shouldn't have assumed. Imagine if Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime as a young man, if he said, "I want to fight Stallone," a lot of people would be interested to see it.
And a lot of people would pay money.
And yeah, I'm not necessarily agreeing with it, but when you compare them to your average boxers, they're going to generate a lot more interest.
Oh, of course.
And that's basically what the whole YouTube, yeah.
I mean, when I say it's not fair, it doesn't seem fair. Just because of, you know, we're conventional boxing guys, and we see these guys, you know, working behind closed doors with no attention on them, for very, very little money while holding down full-time jobs, yada yada yada. Like I just said.
Yeah.
Then you get the YouTubers, because they've already got a reputation, they jump in and they make massive amounts of money. And it just seems, maybe not fair is not really the right terminology, but it just doesn't seem right in a way. And like you've alluded to earlier on, how are they able to do it? Because they couldn't do it in football, they couldn't do it in any other sport.
Yeah.
But I guess boxing is one of those individual sports where you can do it, because the rules really are not that astute. If you understand what I mean. Of course, if you want a British Boxing Board Control licence, you have to go through quite a few stern tests.
Yeah.
Should we say? But then again, if you want to have a white collar fight, there's very little that you have to go through. There's very few rules. Whereas in other sports, if you want to perform on any kind of level, then you have to have. Do you understand where I'm
No,
going
that's
with
what
this?
I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So you have to have played at a certain level in order to qualify to be on that stage. So I see exactly, and you're absolutely right. How do you guard against it? Do we want to guard against it?
I think you should. You need to have solid rules in place because.
Again, I got nothing against them.
Yeah.
Good on them. It's no skin off my nose, but when it's like I'll repeat what I said. You know, where, for instance, then you get maybe someone fighting for a Commonwealth title for very, very, very little money. By the time they pay their trainer and they pay their management, then there's nearly nothing left. And you just think, well, surely there should be something that ensures that these guys, for all their hard work, should earn a little bit more money and come out with at least something. But there isn't. Yet, again, we're going around in circles. I'll mention it again.
I'm listening, yeah, I'm listening.
Imagine the money that Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, again, I've got nothing against these guys at all.
I know you
Imagine
don't, yeah.
the money that they earn, which I mean, good on them. But on the flip side of the coin, like I just said, when you've got guys who are probably a lot better, a lot more talented.
They are.
Not necessarily working hard. I suppose these guys work hard as well. Of course they do. But a lot better, a lot more qualified to be on the big stage. Are earning nowhere near the money.
I agree. But I'll
it's a funny one, isn't it?
I'll say briefly, I don't want to take up too much time, but the system in boxing needs to change because, as you say, I'd blame the system. It's like, Okay, so I'll give you a lot of people in America, these waiters and waitresses, they complain if you don't tip them. It's never happened to me. I'm willing to tip. If they don't get tipped, they'll complain online. They'll say such and such never tipped me. I told them once, I said, instead of blaming people for not tipping you, blame the system in the USA. Maybe they need to change the system where you're. So this is what I'm saying about maybe.
You did a bit of a subject jump there, you caught me off guard, but no, listen, it's something that, I've been to the USA for maybe 15, 20 times. I always tip. I think it's very, very cheeky when you pick up these menus and then it's very condescending when they're telling you what a fair tip is, what a good tip is, and what a brilliant tip is. I think that's really sort of patronising.
No, I know.
So I always tend to try to leave maybe about 15% when I'm in America. I think that would be considered tight.
Exactly.
I don't think I'm a tight man. I think that's pretty generous. I mean, we had a case. We were over in Texas with Jay Harris when he boxed Martinez.
Okay.
And I was with a few of the BBC boys. So for some reason we all paid individually. So I paid cash. To say that it was like 10 quid. I think I left about 13. The other guy did the same. The other guy just paid on card, and he paid the amount it was. Say it was a 10, he paid. So we'd run out. We didn't run out. We walked down, and we've gone 100 yards down the road. This waiter's come running out of the restaurant, chasing us down the road. Whoa! One of you didn't tip. What was the problem? Literally, I couldn't believe it.
I'm shocked, yeah.
One of the BBC boys, and he was like, whoa, I didn't realise. We went back up the road, went back in the restaurant, and tipped her on card about $2.50. It's really, really wild the way that it is over there. I'm not saying it's wrong, and I know that, well, I've heard, I don't know if it's a fact, perhaps they're poorly paid over there, so they rely on tips to hike their wages up. I don't know if that's the truth, but I always make sure I tip probably so as I don't get in any altercations and
getting chased down the street.
Chased down the street, I think. But no, you're absolutely right.
But yeah, I'm not trying to catch you off guard, but that's the way I'd explain boxing. The economic model for boxing needs to change. Where I'll give you a very quick example, but you've got so many people in boxing that don't really know boxing, don't understand boxing. Okay, I'll give you a quick example. It's like you get all these strength and conditioners and they'll tell you, like, you're a trainer, you know this much better than me. I've been around boxing long enough to understand when you're getting guys to lift weights and put on muscle, it doesn't mean you're better, it doesn't make you a better fighter. It's like Katie Taylor. Like, as a person, I'm a great talker. You put me on a top table, I can talk. But take Katie Taylor, you can teach her more vocabulary. It doesn't mean she's going to become a better talker. So I think that's the way. So you get all these people and all these people in boxing that don't know boxing. They're taking percentages of your purse, but they're not actually worth having around.
I think it's an interesting point you make. Strength and conditioning coaches. 10 years ago, nobody knew what one of those was. So what did Hagler and Leonard do? They never did strength and conditioning. They were taught to stay away from weights. I'm not saying that that's the right way, but I think it is. It's overestimated these days. I mean, the core of your work has got to be boxing work, surely.
But then you need someone like yourself who you know how to train fighters. And look, I've been around boxing a long time. Like, I know kids that can. I know when someone can fight, and I know when they can't fight. You don't take I can tell just from shadow boxing. You can gauge a person's level.
You can tell really in 30 seconds just the way someone shapes up, can't you? But I think the strength and conditioning thing for me, it's got its place, but I can tell straight away. I'll always watch the first session, and I'll say to the boxer, "Listen, leave that alone." Liam Williams is used as a really good guy. He understands. Everything's explosive. There's plyometrics, there's
calisthenics,
exactly, different things like that. Lots of explosive work, and any kind of like A to B movements, any weightlifting, bodybuilding, stuff like that. I leave these people alone because for a boxer, lifting weights, I think it shortens the muscle. And I still do my boxing workouts now, and I've lifted weights now for maybe the last 4 years. probably one of the best things I ever started doing because I didn't do it all my life. So I mix all my workouts out. So I mix my workouts up now. And I always find if I do a heavyweight session, if it drops then the next day, I'm in the gym, I've got a spare hour, I do a boxing session, I can't throw my hands the way that I really want to because I'm tight and stiff from the day before. So I think, as I say, strength and conditioning has definitely got its place, but I don't think it's the be all and end all. And the example I use for that is look at Hagler and Leonard and Duran and Burns. I don't think they ever did that kind of thing. They did floor work. They were told to stay well away from weights. So it's interesting, isn't it? How did they do it back then when they were considered the best fighters of their generations, and now all of a sudden, maybe 30 or 40 years later, if you haven't got a strength and conditioning coach, you're not doing things right.
I remember it's like society's going backwards.
Oh, in a lot of ways.
Well, even today, I'll give you a quick example. Like last couple of days, they've announced they're going to ban transgender. What's the term? They're going to ban transgender women from taking. If you're born a man, you can no longer play against women. And finally, we've got a bit of common sense now. I'm not.
Yeah, listen,
we're going backwards in society.
At least I say on things like I'm better because I'm a fossil, and all this new. The way the world's going, at least I say the better because I'm not going to offend someone. And
so I'm bringing it. I don't mean to bring up anything.
But that what you just said has come today. That's the most sensible thing that I've heard on that matter in a long, long time.
Okay, the quickest way I can explain it. I've sparred a lot of people in the past. I've sparred Kelly Pavlik and so on. Take Katie Taylor. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'd be willing to get in the ring with her today, and I say, you can hit me as hard as you like. I want to see what happens. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Not saying I can beat her or anything, but I'd be willing to give her permission, go full power. So she's lightweight, yeah? Now, lightweight men, who you got? You got Devin Haney, you got Javonte Davis. Would I say the same thing to them? Hell no. I'll spar them, but I'll make sure I tell the flipping trainers, like, mate, don't take any liberties. If that doesn't tell you the difference between men and women, then, we'll leave it there. And last thing for now, it's been a bit of a long one, but what makes you happy? Would you like to do away from boxing?
What makes me happy?
Yeah, what do you enjoy in life?
My family. I've got two children. My son's 16, my daughter is 10, and my wife. I got one of the good ones, so I was extremely lucky when I married my wife. Family makes me happy. Holidays, glass of wine.
Glad to hear that, Gary. Thanks so much for your time, and see you in future.
My pleasure, my friend.
Cheers, buddy.